Hey everybody, Pete A. Turner, executive producer and host of your Break It Down show. We've got a really interesting conversation today. Kabran Chapek, who is, he's a doctor and he focuses on the brain. And he actually wrote a book called Concussion Rescue, a comprehensive program to heal traumatic brain injury. Now listen, here's the thing that I've realized is that we always say TBI, traumatic brain injury, but there's also BI, just brain injuries, and B, the brain. The brain is super delicate. One of the things he says in the episode, he talks about how if you're postmortem and you pull a brain out of a skull, it's mush within a little while. He's like, that's like the consistency of butter, very delicate. So when you think about that, and that's trying to survive for 100 years in our head, 120 years, however long we're going to live for, we think about, man, I got to take better care of this thing. I got to quit getting racked on the head all the time. I got to quit banging this thing into things. And so we learn more and more about TBI all the time and the way it manifests, whether it's CTE or just other kind of cognitive problems. And so thankfully we have someone like Kabran come on the show because he's like, look, not only can you help heal your brain, you're actually going to optimize your brain by the things you eat. Here's part of the bad news. Like all of these guys, these damn guys, these doctors, don't eat sugar. Sugar causes swelling. Sugar is bad. Sugar is, and sugar is carbohydrates. It's chips. It's, any kind of sauce. So there's sugar everywhere. But these guys are all saying, here's what we see over and over again. Sugar, sugar, sugar. Whether you're trying to fight cancer or you're trying to prevent your brain from dying or, trying to avoid any kind of long-term health problems, sugar, sugar, sugar. So be prepared. He's going to say it. He's going to say, knock down the sugar intake and, eat these other things. Good news is that there are plans, and definitely get his book. It'll be available in the show notes. You can get it. Again, it's called Concussion Rescue. I know you're going to love what he's talking about. It's super practical, super informative, fascinating stuff. And, look, talking about our well-being. I like you guys. I want you to all be around. By the way, I want to shout out the folks in Brazil who are listening. I see it. I love it. Thank you so much for your support. Also, France, thank you. Je m'appelle Pete. I know how to speak a little bit of French. You like that? So anyhow, I appreciate everybody around the globe listening in. We're going to continue to try to grab some more international guests. I'm working on a couple of Brazilian, a couple of French. Well, actually, Fabien Cousteau was on yesterday. So how you like that, France? Got some people coming in from France. We're going to continue to do that, continue to grab people from around the globe because this is a global show. And I know that if you can take our American-themed things and we put them on, we can certainly take on the international things. So if you have someone in mind and you're abroad, let us know. We'd love to have them on. Hey, everybody, one more thing. Save the Brave, savethebrave.org. Click that donate tab, put a little money in each month, and we will put it to work saving veteran lives. All right, here comes Kabran Chapek. Thank you so much.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland. This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Kabran Chapek, and this is the Break It Down show.
Yeah, so Kabran is a doctor. He has a book called Concussion Rescue. It's the comprehensive program to healing traumatic brain injury, which in general is important because me as a combat soldier, I've been blown up. All of my we're learning more and more, as you know, Kabran, about what happens to our brain, but also in general, like the power of epigenetics and all these things that we put in our body. It turns out the higher quality food source you put into your body, the better your organs all work based off of that food. And so we've always thought about junk food and eating bad as like, you'll gain some weight and maybe you get diabetes. But the whole system, I'm learning, is impacted by these kind of decisions.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you don't have to be overweight to have, for example, sugar cause problems. Like I had a patient who had dementia, early Alzheimer's, and her son brought her in. She was getting lost just walking down to her local market and back. And we put her on this great program. She was eating sugar. She liked, she's lived in a retirement home. She could have her Frappuccino. She could have her cookies, and she deserved it. She lived a long life and she wasn't overweight. But when we looked at her blood work, her sugars were high. And when we had her cut those out, after a month, her memory improved. Like she was able to find her way to the market again, even though she do anything else. All the other wonderful supplements I gave her and exercise and everything, she didn't do any of it except cut out sugar.
Wow.
That's the impact of
It's,
sugar.
Yeah. Something is, and then the other thing is how many things have sugar in them. And we think of sugar as being like, a donut, but that sauce that you have, every kind of chip. Is there any kind of chip that isn't made out of sugar? I mean, it's everywhere.
No, it's all carbs, and maybe pork rinds or something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Funny.
But it's even fruit. You can eat too much fruit for sure and get too many carbs.
Yeah, that's nuts. So let's back up. We were just off mic. We were talking about how science. We always talk about like science-based decisions, but science will be nice and say evolves, and it changes what the answer was. In my youth, carbs were good. You didn't want to go into ketosis because ketone bodies were dangerous. You didn't want to go anywhere near those things. But now it's a different world.
It is. Yeah, we've we've evolved. You're right, and science and medicine have come a long way to realize that ketogenesis and ketogenic diet, not diabetic ketoacidosis. We're not talking about that. We're talking about nutritional ketosis is actually very healing and very healthy for a number of neurological conditions. It's not for everybody, but as it is someone who has had a brain injury or has dementia or even depression or migraines, like there's a number of conditions the ketogenic diet has been studied for and really is one of the best, most powerful treatments. I had one guy who was a airline pilot. He flew to Australia and was in a bar, was drinking, as you do. And he got into an argument in a fight and got punched out. One punch, knocked out. Couldn't fly back. He was dizzy, confused, couldn't work for a couple of years, came to see me. And he was getting overwhelmed with the protocol. Like he couldn't do the supplements. He was having difficulty exercising. He had fatigue. And he just said, "Hey, doc, what's the one thing I can do? What's the one supplement I can take?" And I said, "Well, let's just have you focus on the ketogenic diet." And that he's able to wrap his head around. He was a, athlete, and it improved his energy enough that he then could do the other parts of the program and get better. And now he's able to fly again and work again.
That's incredible. So from one change, and then does he come back and say, "Okay, what's the next change?" And then just
right. It's like, okay, now I can do what's the best exercise I can do? Okay, my sleep's troubling me. Now I can do something for that. And it's like, yeah, that's often how it works.
So I have a couple of the doctors that come on the show. And these are medical doctors, the doctors that can help people. But one is Dr. Larissa and then Dr. Gappin. They're both in Florida. One does male and one does female precision medicine, where they look at your own specific makeup and whether it's by hypertuning your diet to attune or detune certain things. But, we don't have to be that specific. It doesn't sound like we really can make things like a whole lot less sugar, a whole lot more vegetables, and just, and we're just talking diet here. These are things that you can literally do at the grocery store.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I'm a big fan of data and numbers and testing and all of that, but then there's a lot that you can do right now, like you said. And I think of it as a continuum. So for example, just by, I think of diet as steps. So start with protein at each meal, healthy fats like avocados, coconut oil, MCT oil, macadamia nuts, fish, wild caught salmon, and have proteins at each meal, eggs, and that will stabilize blood sugar, which will, our brains use a tremendous amount of energy, 20 to 30% of calories in your diet straight to your brain.
Wow.
It's a quarter of your plate.
Yeah.
And your brain's only 2% of your body weight. So it's a hungry organ. And after brain injury and these different neurological conditions, brain injury and dementia, there's this metabolic deficit. The glucose is not being utilized by the brain effectively. And so that's one thing that needs to be overcome. But all of us need that kind of fuel. So protein in each meal, vegetables, and work your way up. And you may do well, cut out gluten. And then at the further to the end, there's the ketogenic diet, which you might need to consider to heal, especially if you have a neurological condition.
Mm-hmm. So, when we talk about brain injuries like TBI and I guess TBI, but we never talk about just plain old BI, you know.
Yeah, there's lots of BIs.
But these things are accumulate like hurting your knee. Like if you sprain your knee is now 1% less good. You can rehab it, make it almost as good as new, but the next one, at some point that ligament, that tendon, it just isn't as pliable anymore.
That is a great analogy. I love that. I'm gonna borrow that. And it's true that brain injuries are cumulative. Those hits to the head build up over time, and sometimes it's the straw that broke the camel's back, that last injury, which was maybe not even as severe as a previous one, but pushed you over the edge. This is the whole problem with football players and chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Just playing football, repeated subconcussive hits to the head are cumulative and cause these micro tears and damage to the neurons and increase inflammation that just is like a fire that hasn't been put out and continues to smolder for months and years. And then 20 years later, dementia starts.
Yeah. Subconcussive hits. Please define that term so we can understand what you're talking about. I mean, I understand all the words, but what does that mean in practical application?
Well, basically just bonking your head, not to the point of having symptoms, but it's like you hit your head on the car door and you see stars for a second.
Yeah.
That's in between below a concussion and a concussion, somewhere in there. It's like you hit your head, you jostled your soft little brain that's like floating in fluid and smashing against the inside of your skull, which is hard as a rock. Your brain is like soft as butter. And so these damage, boom, you just hit your head. It's cumulative. All those count.
What is the immediate care for that? Because when I was in the Army, I hit my head so many times, I basically became immune to that kind of pain. Like
wow.
Yeah, you hit your head, like anything else, you just develop a tolerance for it. Like one time, I hit my head on a vehicle so hard that I had a blister, like a water blister. I had that much.
God. Okay.
It didn't slow me down for 3 seconds. I went, I hit my head, and I kept going. Now I look at that and I go, good God, I hit my head so hard, I caused a blister,
Yeah. Oh, that's horrible. And I'm sure you're not the only one.
Yeah. Come on. Nonstop with that stuff all the time.
And, I think about this a lot. It's like, why is that? It's like, we don't see our brain. Mm-hmm. We don't look at our brain.
Yeah.
It's inside of our skull, and you don't feel your brain if it's injured. It doesn't, cause us pain. So then we ignore it.
Right.
And that's the whole problem. And if we could see through our skull and see our brains that are bruised and bleeding, like if you take your brain out, or a fresh brain, and put it on the table, it's a pile of goo in a few hours. It's very soft.
Wow. And
so just imagine hitting your head like that and causing bruising, and then you walk into a tank and something like, bonk your head. And so there was a study done in the field of war. This is what it reminds me of. 81 active duty military. They're in the field of war in Afghanistan, I believe. And if in the study, they were looking at what they could do immediately for concussions, because I guess I didn't realize, they make sense. People hit their head a lot in the Army. And if they were the IED blast went off or something, you brought the person to the medic. They were given NAC, N-acetylcysteine, which is the precursor to glutathione. It's anti-inflammatory. It's a supplement. It's over the counter. And they gave them NAC for a week. At the end of a week, those folks that were given the NAC had, I believe, 86% less symptoms of concussion versus those that didn't, had 42% recovery.
Wow.
So most people do, and that's about what we see is if you've had a concussion, about half will go on to have symptoms past a week. The other half will not. And so this is what I think we got to do for people immediately, is to give them things that quench inflammation, decrease oxidative stress, which is like kind of like rusting on the inside from the inside out, like a car out in the rain. That hundreds of studies point to that whole mechanism with brain injury, that we can intervene, quench that inflammation, that fire that's smoldering, and prevent long-term damage, even if you haven't gone to the ER and had a concussion diagnosed. If you've seen stars, hit your head hard, someone like you who's in the Army, say, and you're still hitting your head all the time, in addition to wearing a helmet or something, I would suggest taking these things all the time, the antioxidants and anti-inflammatory supplements.
So almost like a probiotic, like make it part of my daily thing. And when I say we hit our head all the time, I'm going to say once a week, I hit my head on something hard. And when you're around a big vehicle, you're supposed to wear a helmet. You're still hitting your head on that thing.
Good point.
It just kind of, it's less sharp, you know. But like if you're working on your Humvee, you're on your knees, you're under it, you know. At one point, I was underneath a truck trying to get it to start. And I had to hit the starter with the hammer. And so I do that, bam, and the guy starts, boom, fires this truck up. And I'm like, good. And I go to get out of there, and I'm kind of wiggling on my shoulders, you know, to get out from the truck. And my head got a little bit too high up, and I just kissed the frame of the truck, which caused me to forcefully throw my head right into the ground. I thought I was going to crush my head on the truck. And so I smashed my head. This is something that could happen anytime. You know, it's just a weird thing where, you know, and I hit my head. I didn't hit it hard on the way up, but I really hit it. I had to pick rocks out of my skin on the way down, you know. And that's just, and 10 seconds later, I'm in the truck. Let's go. You know, on to the next thing. It's insane.
It's insane if you think about what's happening with cumulative injury. Yeah.
So my friend's daughters are gymnastic kids, right? And I'm not going to say his name or talk about his kid specifically, but there's a sport where on occasion you hit the shit out of your head.
Oh, you do, yeah.
Likely not a concussion. Maybe you fall into the foam pit, you know, or on the edge of it or whatever. But I got to believe it. Those subconcussive hits are still there.
Yeah, they're gymnasts, lacrosse players, football players, any contact sport. You know, I love sports. I played soccer for many years, and I think we should still continue to play sports. It's just, let's put the seatbelt on now, you know, if we can, using supplements and nutrients and diet to, you know, there's another study, I just love the research, where they had out of UCLA rats. They took these rats and they had them learn a maze, and then they gave these poor rats concussions. Jesus. And one group of the rats they gave I know it's sad we do studies on animals, but it's how we learn, I guess. One group of the rats they fed sugar water, fructose in water, and imagine like soda or something for us. After 6 weeks, the group that was given the sugar water took 30% longer to run the maze than the group that didn't. So imagine, you know, after you hit your head or ongoing, keep that sugar down. And the vitamin D, same, like vitamin D levels, if they're optimal versus deficient, less concussive symptoms if you do hit your head. So that's putting the seatbelt on.
So you were saying, now that we've got everybody's attention on just how close to home this can hit all of us, what should we be taking in addition to our probiotic daily? What, like for anti-inflammatory and what was it again?
NAC, so N-acetylcysteine. I would suggest vitamin C, you know, antioxidant, vitamin D, D as in dog. And, you know, if you aren't able to get tested, then you can at least just take like a minimum of 2,000 international units a day, very safe. Used to be afraid of vitamin D, but, you know, don't be afraid. Omega-3 fatty acids are very helpful, anti-inflammatory. They help cell membranes stabilize. And that's what I would do. I would add curcumin to the program if you are injured acutely. I'd recommend a good multiple vitamin. You know, just make sure you've got your bases covered and if you're filling gaps from your diet.
So, and this is for someone who's actively engaged in something where, you're hitting your head or jostling your nugget around a little bit more often than not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's shocking how gentle our head is. But, I mean, you think about a sunburn and how damaging that is over the course of time. And, why wouldn't the sun be as susceptible to something small like that repeatedly?
Right. We know that, like you said, your ligaments get injured, and so you're more susceptible. Your skin, it's clear that we all know that if you've had lots of sun damage as a kid, you're more likely to have skin cancer later. It's just like you have a lot of brain injuries when you're young. You're more likely to have dementia and memory and mood problems when you're older.
One of the things we're learning more in the military too is that BIs and TBIs are caused by concussive waves. So you're just standing there and, which is terrifying because if you shoot the Barrett enough times, not only does it damage your brain, but also your sac around your heart, has the ability to, especially if you're susceptible to it, and you wouldn't know that until all of a sudden you've got a life and death, probably death problem. Are there things like that in the civilian world? Like, can you play your stereo so loud you're just constantly jacking your brain up?
Ooh, that's a good question. A concussive blast. Usually I do think of military and shock waves and things. I don't know about music. That's a good question. I have to research that. Let me make a note here because, my son is 13. He likes loud music. Maybe I can use that to...
Yes.
We need to protect his...
Next thing you know, all subwoofers are out of the house.
Yeah.
So, in general, though, like, what about those other things? Like, I mean, you skateboard, you wear a helmet, but that doesn't mean your brain didn't just get crushed.
Exactly. You can still damage your brain even with a helmet on, and it's clear even from football. And we're starting to study this more that kids who play football in high school, even if they don't have symptoms of a concussion, it actually does change the brain. There's studies that they did, for example, they took 3 groups of kids all playing football around the ages of 15 to 19. And the first group had no concussion symptoms, cognitive testing normal, and they did an fMRI, which is normal. Second group, they had the opposite. So they had concussion symptoms, cognitive testing, they had problems, and fMRI, they had problems. But there was a third group where they had no known symptoms of concussion, but on cognitive testing, there were issues, and fMRI, there were issues. So that's what we're talking about, just being careful, being aware. I was going to mention something about the shock waves too, about the military guys and gals, that it penetrates more deeply, like you said, for the heart and also for the brain. And pituitary gland is right in the middle of the brain, and it doesn't always get damaged with a traumatic brain injury, but certainly can. This pituitary gland is like your master hormone gland. Shockwave blast can really get in there and damage it. And if there's damage to the pituitary, you can have deficiencies of all of your other hormones: testosterone, growth hormone, progesterone, and estrogen for women. And 20 to 30% of football players, retired NFL, have low testosterone, low growth hormone, and it's very common in the military. So I had this guy who was 30. Was a gunner, rear gunner for a tank. I don't know, a Humvee. And there's an IED blast went off. He got knocked off the turret or whatever he was on, knocked out for a minute, brought to, had anger problems after that, mood problems and confusion. And I saw him a few years later, and he had, and he was like a robust, strong, healthy young guy. You couldn't tell there was any issue.
Right.
But he had very low testosterone, like extremely low, in the hundreds. And so when we corrected his testosterone level, his irritability went away, his mood lifted, his energy was up.
Wow.
So it was just, and it was from a blast injury, damage to his pituitary gland.
We lost a kid. Like, you looked at him, there wasn't a mark on him, but he had some kind of, this is my guess, I'm not a doctor, but he had some kind of, congenitive disposition. And apparently when the shockwave hit him, it just basically instantly killed him. Like we all got out because there was an attack. He didn't, which happens. And by the time, and it's not long, like, minutes at most. And he's literally 10 yards from the person closest to him. And he was gone. There's no bringing him back,
Right.
Just sitting there as peaceful as can be.
Wow, that's awful. It makes me think of this concept of brain reserve. Have you heard of this?
No.
So it's essentially the idea that we all have different levels of sort of strength of our brain, for lack of a better term, and that we can do things that make it increase it or decrease it. But it's like, why did two people have, the same type of blast injury or the same type of head injury? But why does one person have post-concussive syndrome and the other person doesn't?
Yeah.
Maybe the one was born with a little bit more resilient brain, but the other one drank more alcohol or didn't sleep enough or ate a lot of junk food or a lot of sugar. Maybe they had low vitamin D. And so all of these factors contribute to brain reserve. And if your brain, and you can, lifelong learning, and as you get older, your brain reserve goes down. And so we're always trying to increase or hold on to the brain reserve that we've been given at birth and make it better, not make it worse.
Can you make your brain be more than 100% of what it is right now? Like if you rally and you stop hitting your head on stuff and all that, eat the best diet, can you get your brain even more restored than
yeah.
Can you attune it?
You can make it better. You can always make it better. And this is what I'm here to say, is that it's never too late to heal your brain from injury. Like, people are catching on to the idea of first aid for your brain, that you want to do things immediately, like rice for an ankle, and we talked about earlier, taking supplements immediately. But then even 5 to 10 years later, there's things you can do to kind of rehabilitate and improve the blood flow and the strength of your brain. And it's essentially supplements, exercise, diet, looking at things that may be affecting your brain adversely, like nutrient deficiencies, toxins. So we study football players a lot at AmenClinics. So we had 30 retired NFL, and we scanned their brain. We used a type of brain imaging called SPECT, S-P-E-C-T, and it's looking at blood flow versus an MRI, which is more structural. And we took them and imaged them at the beginning, imaged them at the end. We had them do supplements, exercise, nutrition, ruled out sleep apnea. Some of them got hyperbaric oxygen, which is we can tell you what that is. And at the end of this study, 80% improvement in memory, mood, focus.
Wow.
And their brains look much better.
Yeah.
As well. So we were able to document objectively that we improved, even like 20 years after they were done playing football. They're retired.
Right.
Severe brain injury,
Wow. So you're taking your brain to the gym and getting it back into shape.
Yeah. Right. Love that. Yeah, exactly.
So many of these things with the brain, and again, I'm no doctor. I just notice things and take notes and do the standard human thing where I make a pattern. But someone like the NFL's Chris Henry, who had dramatic CTE in his brain, he's in his 20s, but he's making these horrible decisions in terms of human behavior. And you have to think someone like, all of these guys, Hernandez, right? Like Aaron Hernandez.
Yeah.
There's no way when you look at his brain. Do you remember the guy? Well, maybe you don't remember, but you remember there was a guy in Texas who went up to the top of the tower and started. And before this guy went on his massacre shooting people at UT, he said, "There's a problem in my brain." And this is the 60s, so they're like, drink some Jack Daniels and get out of here, kind of thing. Yeah. But when they chopped his brain apart post-mortem, there was a problem in his brain.
There was a problem in his brain. He knew it, didn't he? Yes, and that's true. A lot of these people, that's where, because we don't see the brain, we think what's wrong with you? Why are you not, what's the issue? You need to just suck it up. But that's where we're all about imaging the brain, looking at the
Right.
brain
Okay.
and looking at data.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait till you're dead to see if there's been a brain injury and do an autopsy. I mean, let's do it now. Let's figure out what's going on. Or at least think back. If you don't have access to imaging, then let's think and take it seriously that, okay, all of those hits to your head are probably doing some damage. If you're having a mood issue, think back to the hits to your head that you've had. Why don't you try going onto a program what's the worst thing that will happen if you try and make your brain better? You might lose weight, you might get healthier, you might sleep better.
You might save your marriage.
Yeah, exactly.
We laugh, but it's true, though. I mean, the brain, each of our organs has a vital role, obviously.
Yeah.
That's why they're there. But just the cognitive behavior problems. I know, like, for me, I have hit my head a lot. My brain has survived on cortisol and unnatural levels for years, And so I've had to do a lot of mindfulness and awareness and, just a lot of training just to get, it's not that I don't respond instantly to what my brain thinks is the right response. I know to slow down, and I put some freeze into my fight or flight. I'm like, okay, hold on. And then I reassess. But it'd be great to work on the machine, though, and make the machine work better,
Yes, exactly. And it's not too late, Pete.
Okay, good.
It's not too late.
I do this, and I don't know that I do it because I'm asleep when it happens. And I fall asleep like that, like a light switch. I can roll over and I can be out. But apparently I have like the dog running dream thing that I do every night right when I go to sleep. And
Really?
I've seen terrifying things that link that to brain injury and like pre-Alzheimer's and all that kind of thing. But I don't know that I've ever not done it. But maybe I had a big concussion when I was a kid. What are your thoughts on that when I tell you that?
I hadn't heard of that, to
Okay.
be honest with you. I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't heard to research the dog running thing when you fall asleep. Are your muscles twitching and like?
Yeah, and it's not. I don't think it's so much running. I think it's more like firing. Like my muscles are
Spasming?
firing.
And do you have restless legs like that or different?
I've got I'm fidgety, so my legs are kind of fidgety, but I wouldn't say I've restless. I don't think it's a problem.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. So having enough dopamine and frontal lobe activity to stop that from happening it can be an issue. Essentially, you've heard of giving kids with ADD caffeine and they calm down instead of getting more excited.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. If you don't have enough dopamine and you have damage to the frontal lobe, which is a part for focus and concentration, it actually can calm down other parts of the brain and stop. So like, for example, with tremors and Parkinson's, you need dopamine, which is like an excitatory neurotransmitter, but it stops the tremor.
Right.
So it's kind of an analogy for that.
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner from Lions Rock Productions. We create podcasts around here. And if you, your brand, or your company want to figure out how to do a podcast, just talk to me. I'll give you the advice on the right gear, the best plan, and show you how to take a podcast that makes sense for you, that's sustainable, that's scalable, and fun. Hit me up at pete@breakitdownshow.com. Let me help. I want to hear about it.
So it's kind of an analogy for that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I definitely, I don't thrive on caffeine. I just had some bulletproof coffee. That was more of a snack, though, with some healthy fats.
Okay. Good for you. I love it.
And I eat a lot of avocados. But I definitely want to continue to ramp up my brain care because here's the other thing I've realized is that because, especially as men, we don't smoke 2 packs a day and have 3 martini lunches all the time and eat, fried food all the time. And we know that refined sugar and all sugars we're not dying when we're 52. I'm 50. So, like it used to be looking like, oh, he lived a long age and he was 55 when his heart blew up on the golf course,
Right.
We've fixed that problem. But the new problem is now we're running into the next thing where like your brain wears out or your liver wears out,
Yeah. You want to live a long time with a healthy brain because that's everything, really.
Yeah.
It's like who you are and your memories are so valuable. And you're right. Every other chronic disease has gone down. We are actually fairly good at treating HIV when it used to be a death sentence.
Right.
But now, and cancer, but Alzheimer's disease is like a death sentence. It's like there's nothing we can do, but there's so much we can do now. especially if you catch it early. So assess for that, and brain injuries set us up for that. So just that we can do so many things and not give up, and we need to try. And that's what I'm here to say, is that we can try and help. The brain can actually, it's more plastic than we think. And you can actually, doing the things that are good for the heart are good for the brain, and vice versa.
Okay. So one of the things we've also learned is that due to our external environment, before we hit our head or and let me press pause on that. I'm going to come back to that. What are your thoughts on kids playing soccer and doing head balls? Should adults be doing it, or should we outlaw that?
I would like to see and I love soccer.
Yeah.
I'm a soccer player. Yeah. I played all through from age 5 to 18, and then again, some during naturopathic medical school. And in naturopathic medical school, I didn't do headers anymore because I had 100,000 in student loans that I was too valuable. It's not worth the header.
Not worth it. Yeah.
I'll do a chest trap, So
Right.
I think we could modify the rules. It would change the game a lot. Like crossovers and corner kicks would be very different if you couldn't do headers. But there would still be athleticism, and there would still be sportsmanship and all of the wonderful things we get from kids' sports.
Yeah.
We could do without headers. I don't think we should hit the soccer ball with our head. And we're not designed to hit things with our head. We're not Rams.
We're not Rams. Yeah, and I guess if you did an accurate measle map of FIFA injuries to the brain, yeah, there's going to be some all over the field because your face is still going to run into someone's knee. But I bet you inside of that penalty box, and primarily in the goal box, it's just got to look like a massacre is going on for brain injuries there.
Totally. Yeah. I'm not current on the research, probably because I'm in denial for myself with soccer players, but I believe that there tends to be that frontal lobe damage and more brain problems as they get older.
Yeah. Do we see, all right, so just what do you think? Do we see the day when soccer players are wearing some form of helmet?
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen it, but some kids have those. It's like a little pad thing.
Yeah.
So I think we need that. I think we need things. It's too precious. I mean, sports are awesome, but your whole life, damage your brain. It's like football's the same. You damage your brain. And some kids and young athletes are saying, hey, no, it's not worth it. And they're 20 years old. They're very promising, and they give it up.
Yeah, it's like the NFL thing. Like you're going to get rid of me no matter what you do. So why don't I just go now? Take my NFL pension and get the hell out and go do save what I got,
Yeah, because it's so valuable. It's who you are.
Yeah, that's crazy. Now I got to think about my question I pressed pause on.
Got on the tangent.
Well, but it's important for me to understand that, and for the parents out there to hear it, like to really think, because okay, my kid doesn't play football because I would never allow it, but my kid plays lacrosse. Well, guess what?
It's something to just think about. At least now we're talking about it, and you can do things like don't give your kids sugar after the games, and if they do have a concussion, do the protocols in Concussion Rescue in the book, and just keep their vitamin D level. At least do that, and think about what else they could do.
Right, and just for you guys, so Dr. Kabran's book is called A Comprehensive Program to Healing Traumatic Brain Injury. It's Concussion Rescue, and you can get it on Amazon. And by the way, your book is highly rated. 5 stars across the board. Someone said if you'd have one or know anyone's ever had a concussion, get them this book. Like it is that vital.
That's awesome.
That's not Pete saying this. This is people that have bought the book. So, and when I read through it, it was packed full of things I didn't know. And I'm pretty knowledgeable on a lot of things. I didn't know anything about the brain until I started reading through your book. It really is
awesome,
fantastic.
Man.
I remember my question because my brain still works a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
But I'm gonna lose track of it if I'm not careful. So we're eating better. We're we're trying to do our omega oils to take care of our brain. But our environment, external, regardless of our behaviors, now more than any time in the past that we've ever measured, crushes testosterone. We've learned this from a number of people. You know, like the average testosterone level in a male, and I don't remember the number exactly, but I believe it's 40% of what it was in the 70s.
Wow.
Holy
That's
shit.
amazing.
You know, and the number was dramatic like that. If it isn't 40%, it was half at least of what it was normally. Like dudes walking around had way more testosterone. So apart from the headbutting and, you know, the sticks to the head from soccer or hockey or whatever, from field hockey or whatever, our environment that we're in day to day is causing a constant brain injury.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You know, I'm just thinking about testosterone, like sleep. I mean, that's when you produce testosterone, is in deep stages of sleep. And so we're staying up later. You know, we used to go to bed when the sun goes down and get up when the sun comes up. And we used to get a lot more exercise. Testosterone. We sit around a lot more. And sugar just kills testosterone, especially free testosterone. So in your blood, you have total and you have free. And total is sort of what's circulating, and then free is what's unbound and available. And that when you get that spike of sugar and then insulin drives the sugar back into the tissues, it'll push away the testosterone as well. So sugar kills testosterone.
So sugar really is our enemy.
And it keeps coming back to that. That's the theme.
Wow. Yeah. So a ketogenic or some kind of very, very low carb diet really is a big solution to a lot of different problems.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, ketogenic diet does increase for many men testosterone levels. If they have that injury to the pituitary gland, it's usually not quite enough. They need more support, whether it's supplements or peptides. You know, strength training really helps increase testosterone, but and just healing the overall brain will help heal that pituitary gland. But sometimes you have to prime the pump again and add a few particular nutrients.
When you have your patients come into the AmenClinic, what percentage of them would you say require some real doctorizing? You know, we're like, okay, you've got this pituitary problem. We've got to put extra nutrients in there. But how often do they need a doctor's level care of you know, out of 100 patients? How many of them can go back and just improve their self-care if they're equipped to do so?
You know, we see people who we're usually not the first stop.
Okay.
People have tried on their own a fair amount and they're not getting better, or they've seen, well, the average I think is 4 doctors that they've seen before they come see us.
Wow.
And they haven't gotten better. So usually we do need to do something more. However, you can't not do the nutrition and the exercise and the that piece of it. That has to be part of it, or else the other parts of the plan won't work. And we did an informal study. 4 out of 10 patients that come to see us have had a brain injury when we scanned them, and they didn't know about it before coming in. So it's contributing to part of what's going on. Had a patient we'll call Jeremy, who was 21 when he came in. He was this jazz drummer, really active kid, really neat kid, but he was very sad and depressed. He had been suicidally depressed since he was 14 years old. Oof. And he had tried every medication, been to some really great therapists. And when we scanned him, he had clearly had injury to the left side of his brain. However, on his history, he listed no brain injury. So I was like, Jeremy, when did you hit your head? Have you ever fallen out of a tree? Have you ever dove into a shallow pool? Have you ever had a car accident? No. Have you ever played contact sports? I started playing football when I was about 13 years old. And he was a scrawny little kid matched up against the coach's son who was 6 feet tall and just get pounded every practice and have these headaches and stuff. And that's when his depression started. That's when he started having ADD symptoms. And we put him on a program to heal his brain in addition to changing his meds. And he started to get better and the depression lifted. He stopped smoking the pot that was the only thing that was helping him. And now he's about to graduate from the Berklee School of Music 2 years later.
Oh,
Doing great. So,
man, that is great. What's this guy's name?
well, this is a patient.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, never mind. Sorry. I was going to have him come on and talk. We have people from Berklee on all the time, but you're right. I forgot.
Oh, you do? That's cool.
Yeah.
We're calling him Jeremy, not his real name.
Yeah, Jeremy. Yeah. No, sorry about that. I was going to, well, because I love to talk about these kind of things, but you're right. I want to
absolutely.
Make sure. Yeah.
Well, I do have patients who would love to tell their story, so I will.
Sure, we'll do it. Well, because, as you know, there's a lot of us who listen to the show are parents, and you want your kid to do sports and you want them to do these things. If your kid is suicidal, oh my God, like what won't you do to help keep your kid alive, because there's no, it's so, obviously, I'm going to say the words, it's so horrible when a kid does commit suicide, because there likely is something as simple as not eating sugar. Are you kidding me? Like, we'll fix the other stuff. Let's just get your brain working right. It's
a multifaceted problem, and there's been so many studies to try and figure out what to do for brain injuries. Like there's been 25 large-scale trials, and they all have failed to find the one thing. And that's the key, is that it's not one thing. It's doing a bunch of things.
Yeah.
And that's what helps heal the brain. It's like so there will be a tipping point. So you have your diet, you have your sleep stable. Like 30 to 70% of people with brain injury have sleep problems. I mean, you got to get sleep figured out.
Yeah.
Exercise, supplementation, treating hormones, looking at the structural piece. So if your occiput, your the vertebrae, and then you have the spinal cord and coming up through it into the skull. If there's impingement from the vertebrae out of place, pushing on that spinal fluid flow, there's no supplement for that. You have to correct that structural integrity. There's specific chiropractors that can help with that. They're called upper cervical chiropractors, NUCA. They're obsessed with that upper cervical vertebrae, and they will help.
Well, it turns out that's pretty close to the brain and pretty important,
Pretty important. Yeah.
So can stenosis cause a brain problem because you're just running out of space in there?
Yeah, it can impinge on cerebral spinal fluid. It's called cranial cervical syndrome. Wow. So whatever it is, whether it's stenosis or out of alignment, or there's some neurological, anatomical problems where the people are born with, Chiari malformations and things that can impinge on that cerebral spinal fluid flow. But get it checked out.
Let's look at this from the other side of the thing. So it's a little, we end on a happier note.
Okay.
One, I don't want parents to shelter their kids and not let them enjoy their lives. The kids still need to fall out of trees and all that stuff.
Of course.
What if you want to give your kid, what if your kid really is pretty damn smart and you want to give them every chance to go to a UC or Michigan or Harvard? How do you help your kid attune what is inside their head so that they are as optimized as they can be and they can crush the SATs or whatever it's going to be?
That's great. I love that. There's a number of things, and I would just look at this from a different perspective. Exercise puts your brain in the perfect environment for learning. So aerobic exercise, there's a school in Naperville, Chicago. They had all of the high school students do an hour of cardio at the beginning of the day. An hour of cardio, all of them. They put on heart rate monitors, they monitor them. It's just this culture. And they're already, a highly educated school. This is an affluent area, biotech, science, but they scored number 2 in the world in math and science. And Singapore, some country, was number 1. And they continued to do well. And, we're in Seattle. I work in Bellevue. It's affluent. There's biotech. There's Microsoft, but not scoring that well. So it's like the exercise seemed to be the key. So because it increases BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's like miracle grow for neurons. So there is something to like the athlete scholar thing. Exercise really is helpful for learning. Getting enough sleep. Don't study all night. You have to sleep to have good working memory. And that's when your memory, that's where you will lay down you consolidate memory, essentially. When you're sleeping.
Okay.
Supplements that I love for memory and learning, phosphatidylserine. So that's kind of a mouthful, but PHOSPHATIDYL, serine. Very safe, very helpful for memory, very helpful for learning. 10% of your neurons are made out of this. I like that with fish oil, with the multivitamin. I wish I would have known about it when I was going to school. There's a number of supplements that are helpful for memory and learning. Bacopa is an herb that's a great one.
Yeah.
So,
Bacopa.
many. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it's incredible to think about what we know now. Like just the fact that we can image the brain without having to pull it out of someone's head is remarkable. You know, when someone comes in and you say, "Have you ever hit your head?" And then I laugh and I go, "I don't know, 1,000 times."
Yeah, right.
I mean, where do you start when you look at my pumpkin and you're like, "That thing is that eggs? It's scrambled." You know, like where is it not hurt? I'm like Indiana Jones. Where does your brain not hurt? Maybe here.
Yeah. Yeah. You just, it's luckily a lot of the things we're talking about, you can do and you can start immediately,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And, just do all the things in the book, start exercising, sleeping well, taking supplements. And then if you're not better, that's when you want to think about finding one of our clinics, getting a scan, seeing your doctor and having them check the labs that are in the book. I have a whole list of labs you can have your doctor do.
No, that's fantastic. And again,
Not
this
too late.
book, which I always recommend the books, but this book to me was really, really important because we all have brains, and a lot of us have kids who have brains. Some of us don't.
Yeah.
That's a great joke there. But Concussion Rescue, a comprehensive program to heal traumatic brain injury. And I will put that into the notes so you guys can find that. It is a powerful, powerful resource to help take care of our brains, because it turns out I thought I was going to be dead by about now. You know, I mean, you look at all the decisions I've made and all the places I've worked, and I'm not supposed to be here. But it turns out I'm going to be around for a while. So I've got to... Well, as soon as I'm able, I like to swim. That's what my body allows me to do still. Yeah. And, you know, let me ask you this. This brings another question to mind. Well, the show up today is a guy named John McCaskill. He's a Navy SEAL, and he's for years used meditation as a means of healing and everything else. Is that something that you guys, because your clinic is kind of, I'm going to say it's kind of hippie duty, you know, hippie, like it's the place you go after you've tried all the other doctors and you're like, of course we do these things, right? And I'm saying this in the most positive way. You guys are a unique place.
That's fine. Meditation, it's been studied for brain injury even, but it strengthens the frontal lobe, helps quality of life, strengthens the temporal lobes. That's been shown on numerous fMRIs. And so the frontal lobe is like focus, concentration, making good decisions. Temporal lobes are memory centers and mood stabilizing areas of the brain. And, you know, meditation is huge. It's like poor man's brain training. If you need a coach but can't afford one, you know, to train your brain, meditation can really help you. And can be very simple. You can just simply focus on your breath or focus on what you hear around you with your eyes closed and bringing your focus back. That's the one key that I think people don't realize. You don't have to stay focused the whole time, but bringing your focus back, and that's like the bicep curl, bringing it back. And that strengthens the frontal lobe. Love meditation. I should do more of it myself, but it's awesome that the Navy SEAL does it.
Yeah, he does it, and it's a great episode. His name's John McCaskill, for anybody who's listening.
I'm going to listen to it.
Yeah, these things, gosh, it's just so powerful. I mean, hopefully I never have to come see you guys, because that means I'm 5 doctors deep, and I'm trying to solve a life and death crisis at this point, you know, really. You know?
Right, it's true.
Definitely a quality of life crisis, but what we've talked about are eating better, exercising more, meditating, avoiding smashing your head into things. These are all my level things that I can do, and it's just on me. We had on these ladies from Prellis Bio, and they are learning, and creating means of printing organs. Like, so they're working on the kidney first, and even just adding in like half a kidney in to help take over the other two damaged ones. But they were saying that, the research they see in the peer-reviewed journals is that basically everybody has some form of organ failure going on. Maybe it's 10% across the board. But now imagine your kidney and your liver both working at less than 10%, minus 10%, and they're feeding that brain.
Exactly. That's right.
It's
right.
It's such a powerful thought. Like, just because you can't see your heart doesn't mean it doesn't need you to pay attention to it, or your lungs. I mean, look at, there are so many different things that we can do for ourselves, and then so many harmful things, even if you live well, that are in our environment, whether it's the quality of the air or, anything. It's
true.
It's shocking, man. It's shocking to think about how much we can care for ourselves and how desperately our body wants us to do it.
So true. That's well said. I'm a true believer in that. Yeah.
What else should I have asked you that I haven't asked you about?
We've covered a lot. Talked about the structural piece, the labs. I think we're good. I do have another meeting in a couple minutes.
Perfect.
This is good.
Well, let me wrap it up then. Hey, listen, I appreciate you coming on, man. It's a great conversation, and hopefully every time I hear it, if nothing else, if everybody else, forget them, if I just get a little better each time I have this obvious message pounded into my brain, maybe I'll continue to follow through more and more and get better and better at this stuff. I appreciate you trying to help.
My pleasure. You've got good brain reserve already, Pete, and I can watch out when you make it even better. You're going to be doing podcasts like crazy.
like crazy, yeah. I got the sleeping part down, and when I'm allowed, I swim. But
nice.
I got to get away from this sugar, man. I got to do it.
Sugar.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Great to talk with you, Pete.